Hey, Cole, how's it going?
It's going well, sir. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. For the people who are watching on Spotify video, you'll notice that we have a big old red guest 3 for the people who are listening on audio because I don't know, you get your podcast from I don't know wherever you get your podcast, but it's if you're getting the audio only version, what you're not seeing is Scott. We have a big red spot for him on the screen, but he's not here. What's up? Do we know where he is?
Well, we've been waiting for him for about half an hour. He said, just wait for me. We'll be there. We'll be there. And we've been waiting. And finally he said, you know what, never mind. Go on without me. So we're going to leave him on the screen for a bit just as we haggle him.
Yeah, just kind of like
yes.
leave this blank space here to really rub it in for a moment, and then we'll get rid of that little box, and it'll be just you and me. So, what's been going on in your life, Cole?
Oh, it's been good. I've just got back from a little vacation with family, and we're just settling in finally at summer. So it's still working all summer, but it just feels different today for some reason, being the first day of June in the office. So
yeah. You could start to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Like I remember this when I was a teacher because that feeling has not gone away. It's still there. But you're being a little too subtle for me. You got to unpack this vacation thing. Come on, expand on that a little bit.
So me and my family, we traveled back to Virginia a couple weeks ago, and it was so that I could walk for my graduation. And we went there. We did that, got it over with, and boy, I'm glad to be back.
So graduation. So what do we call you? Dr. Cole, Dr. Sampson? What do we do?
Cole. I will continue to go by Cole forever. It was a box that needed to be checked in my life. It's checked, and now I'm moving forward.
Nice. All right. Yeah. I'm kind of jealous. I'm going to have to pick your brain on that. I know I'm getting older, and after a while, you go, it doesn't make financial sense anymore, but I might have to pick your brain and I don't know. Did you enjoy, like, as you checked off that box? Was it worth it to you? Like, how did I talk about that?
So, I mean, it took 2.5 years as a journey, and it was one of those things I had debated for more than 5 years about when am I going to start it? Because I've always been the kind of person I'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. So you just kind of have it in my back pocket because I don't know 10 years from now what I want to be doing exactly. But gosh, it was almost like after the first semester of classes, like, oh gosh, what did I get myself into? And I'm not sure if I want to do this. And that kind of was my entire life for 2.5 years until the writing of the dissertation part, which then 100 and something pages later and more hours than I can count. But getting that box checked and just being done with it, it was definitely a sigh of relief knowing that it's there. And my study was really interesting into like mathematics and like the tiered intervention programs of math. So I found it really interesting diving into schools and systems and the way they develop that. So I had a lot of good learning from the research and then from the case study, but glad it's over for sure.
Sure. Are you going to be able to use some of that learning in your work at Kern County?
Yeah, so it was a real small study, so it isn't generalizable but we are definitely thinking about ways to take the learnings from that and already unrolling it as we're helping schools think about their MTSS systems and structures. Sure. Specifically around math and making sure universal screeners are in place. And then what I learned is really it's how are kids being identified to move from tier 1 to tier 2? And does everyone in that system understand that process? Because when that's out of whack, then you get 85% of kids needing tier 3 support. And really it comes down to communication and the proper structures in place.
Okay.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
Did you walk away with ideas in terms of how to reduce the number of kids who have to go into tier 2 in the first place, kind of a thing? Like, what learnings did you have around that?
So a lot of that was around, what instructional practices are they unrolling in the tier 1 level, and are those uniform, which I know we're going to be talking about some today about, so it's kind of a nice tie in there. But then really it's what are the measures and metrics that kind of trigger the need for tier 2? And so what CFAs, or how are the CFAs built, and do everyone agree, and are they grading them the same, and how is that then impacting the level? And then when they get to tier 2, what's actually happening?
Okay.
Because to get more kids, send them back to tier 1 because they don't need to be there forever, versus leave them there forever and then eventually they need tier 3 support, right? So how do you help kids get in and get out of that tier 2 support quickly, as quick as they can?
Just recently I saw from What Works Clearinghouse. They some big, huge tome, big article talking about 6 recommendations for math intervention. And I don't remember them. Things like using visuals, using a number line. But recommendation number 6 was including timed activities. And, I read this paper, from What Works Clearinghouse, and it was good. It was really good, well cited. I'm reading it and I'm thinking, why aren't we doing all 6 of these things? Because if we're doing these 6 things, well, first off, we should be doing these 6 recommendations in Tier 1 instruction, but definitely this can form the foundation for what we do in Tier 2. And are we making sure we do these 6 recommendations? And but I tweeted it out. And I'll tell you, I got so much crap from people about recommendation number 6, this idea of timed activities as being a part of measuring students' proficiency and fluency with stuff. If they're in Tier 2, it's because we want to fix something. One of the things we want to fix is the students. We want to ensure that the students have immediate ability to grab whatever thing they need from their brain so that they can apply it to the problem that they're working on. And so the idea of timed activities just does not freak me out. But boy, I got a bunch of crap on Twitter for that.
But did it describe, I know the article you're talking about, but I need to remind myself, did it talk about timed activities in the way we think about like timed multiplication tests in the same way?
No, see, that's the whole thing. And so when I was saying, man, I really like this recommendation on timed activities, people are freaking out about mad minutes and kids crying and crawling into the fetal position because they didn't win the race. And I'm like, yeah, that stuff sucks. But that's not at all what the recommendation is talking about in terms of timed activities. And so I'm like, what? Scott. Oh my gosh. Okay. People on Twitter, no, not on Twitter. People on the podcast, they're listening to this audio and they don't know that Scott's ugly mug just popped up on our screen. Great.
Well, I'm hoping this works. I've never tried it on my phone before. So
yeah, well, we'll figure it out. I'm not even going to edit it. We're just going to let people figure this out as it goes.
Cool.
So Scott, just you'll jump in midstream. You'll figure it out.
Cool.
But with respect to the timed activities, I was really trying to make the point to the world that, I went to the doctor, my analogy, I have an analogy, and I went to the doctor the other day and the doctor says, okay, dude, Duane, you're old and you're fat. And so he said, what I need you to do is I need you to go on a 20-minute walk every day. So essentially, my doctor is assigning to me a timed activity. And it didn't mean he wanted me for 20 minutes to run as freaking fast as I could until I'm crying and dying of a heart attack. He just said, for 20 minutes, I need you to do something. And so in that same spirit, we could have kids doing stuff, leisurely, mathematically walking for time. And in that time, we get to see stuff like, if I walk for 20 minutes every day, I'm going to start to notice an improvement. Less breathing heavy, less sweating. I might walk further in my 20 minutes. And I don't have to run and freak out like crazy. And the same idea, we can give kids timed activities in math, create a leisurely walking atmosphere where we watch kids get better over time. We don't have to focus on like this insane speed.
Well, I'll be honest, Duane, whenever I saw you post that, I was also triggered a little bit saying, Duane, we've talked about this at nauseum about how we feel about the multiplication test, right? And then I'm like, why would Duane be put? So it forced me to dive in deeper, knowing there had to be more there. And that's why, but I was one of them. I was ready to light you up on Facebook or Twitter for a second. I'm like, Duane, what are you thinking? And then like, did you read number 6? And then once I dove deeper, though, it was like, oh, yeah, that makes a little more sense there.
Yeah.
About what we're trying to do.
Yeah. I mean, we can create that mathematical equivalent of a leisurely walk for 20 minutes. And we will learn about the kids what we need to learn, and the kids will benefit from what they need to benefit if we create that vibe.
It's important though to like, just for everyone, like automaticity is ultimately the goal, right? Like, and the only way that's going to happen is by that practice, by retrieval, like practicing retrieval with timed activities, but over time, right? By at some point they'll have it.
Yeah. And when it's on top of a foundation or involves, whether you what comes first and all that sort of crap. I don't want to argue with anybody, but it has to include this conceptual understanding where the kids are like 8 times 7 means something to them. So even if they don't have immediate recall that 8 times 7 is 56, they can then kind of downshift to some sort of conceptual understanding, a tape diagram, an array model, distribution, using the distributive property, a known fact, and then tweaking it from there. We need kids to have that. And I don't think anybody is advocating that kids shouldn't have that. But I think the big issue is an irrational desire to hold on to those freaking speed quizzes knowing darn well that those seem to cause some kids harm. And I think it causes kids harm that don't appear to be harmed. Like if I'm in, go ahead, Scott.
I can add a layer to that. One. Sure. So I live with a child who has fairly fast recall. And they used to give out dog tags at our school. At her school, for if you finished your math facts in 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 1 minute, and so, whenever they did these tests, you went over to your wall and you picked up your dog tags off the peg and you wore them to your seat. Have you ever been to one of those awards assemblies when one kid's got all the medals on? They walk up every time, clank, 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 clank. She's the kid who walked around the room with the clank, 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 with 8 or 9 of these things around her neck. And can you imagine? Because I'm the kid who sat over there and never got one.
Right.
I was the kid who was slower at the math facts, and if I heard her clanking through the room, I would already be defeated. I mean, I just like, I'm never gonna catch up to that kid. Why bother? And that's kind of scary in a way. There's some things we think we're rewarding, but actually we're rewarding that one kid, but it's almost doing the opposite for every other kid in the room.
Sure. I mean, it creates an unnecessary vibe of competition. And when you add an unnecessary level of, competition and comparison, me against them, it's just not needed. And then we can get to that quick, fast, immediate recall automaticity. We just don't have to insert unnecessary competition in the process.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Then now that's the A block. We greeted everybody and we waited for Scott, and then we moved on, and then Scott interrupted anyway, and he showed up, and so glad you're here, Scott. No.
Hey, I made my cardiologist mad getting here. So,
does your cardiologist confirm that you indeed have a heart and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, and mine sounds like yours when he says, "Yeah, you're fat and get out and exercise." So, we must have kindred spirit doctors.
Yep. All right, so Cole, we wrapped up a virtual webinar. Talk about that.
Yeah. So our last webinar, we had Ed Campos from Kings County join us. That was super cool and exciting. I don't know anybody, if you were out there and you were listening to it, it was awesome what he did with the AI chatbot. And I have been playing with that thing and trying to break it and then recreate it on my own. And so I have a lot of questions for Ed about how he did that and what underlying app did he use as like the tool. Because like once you go in there, you're like, oh, this is going to be sweet and easy. And then you're like, oh gosh, I have ChatGPT and I have Copilot. I have all these different options to choose from. I'm like, I don't even know. So Ed, if you're listening, I'm calling you soon because I'm ready to take that, that tool to the next level and say like, how do we embed like our ELD frameworks and UDL frameworks and environmental principles, but put all of that into one chatbot, and then really talk about content standards, right? Once it has all that in there, now you can go design these really cool, awesome lessons, for your 7th grade class that are all aligned, and they're using all the standards to your advantage. And so anyway, I think it's a great tool. I think it's a beta, right? It's a test 1, but test 2, whenever we can get all those other things in there, I think that could be a game changer. Even for like our work with districts, as we go out and we're training people on the framework, it's 1,000 pages. Yeah. Right. Well, now you can have a conversation with the framework and ask it any question you want to know, and it'll spit out facts and cite, the framework. And gosh, what a cool tool to have.
You're pushing me in a place I'd kind of forgotten about, because I'm poo-pooing AI right now. I'm in a season, and that season goes back and forth about every 45 minutes. I kind of flip-flop, and I'm in the middle of,
isn't that generational?
Well, sometimes I'm just old and I forget.
You're the older millennial, right?
Yeah, that's me. But so I earlier today, I asked AI, I was on ChatGPT, and I said, give me an order of operations problem where the answer is 34. And it gave me a beautiful order of operations problem for which the answer was not 34. But ChatGPT swore up and down in its explanation to me that the answer is 34. And I'm like, okay, so, AI's got a ways to go. And virtually the same day, I'm watching Sal Khan sit with his son doing that simulated AI thing where she's kind of, she is guiding her son through a homework problem. And I'm like, well, I don't know. The discrepancy between the AI not being able to come up with an equation an expression that equals 34 versus this thing that sounds like it should be coming out of an episode of Star Trek. I'm like, I don't know what to think right now.
Yeah, it's getting there. There are definitely improvements coming. I have the ChatGPT, the 4.0 that just came out a couple weeks ago, and it's pretty cool. So the quantitative side is not caught up to the qualitative side of AI, but I've used it at full blown. My wife's mom, so my mother-in-law, only speaks Spanish, and I was able to have the first conversation I've ever been able to have with her in our 8 years of marriage.
Wow.
Was it last week? But because of ChatGPT being able to be the intermediate translator, so I was able to talk and translate her talking to me and me talking to her through the AI tool. I have the app on my phone now, and so I can have full-blown conversations, but that was never a possibility before that without my wife being present, right? So it is definitely got a ways to go, but it definitely is changing the way in which we can interact with the world, for sure.
That's pretty fantastic. That's
right.
That's kind of a neat application. That's cool. Yeah. All right, so
that's great using it past making a podcast logo, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are you talking about, Scott? I designed that by hand.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry.
So who's our next?
You can do it with your thumbs.
So
who's our next one?
Yeah, we got Jo Boaler coming up next. Dr. Jo Boaler, super excited about that coming up 3rd week of June.
Cool. I'm ready. I absolutely adore working with her, and I can't wait to hear what she has to say. Yeah. And that's a perfect lead in. So, Scott, you weren't here for this, but Cole's going to take the lead for the next portion of our conversation.
Cool.
Cole, talk to us.
Yeah, so as I was doing some leisurely reading, everyone's posting all kinds of stuff, good, pro, bad, all over, Twitter world. There's all kinds of fun stuff you can find there. But an article I came across from Ed Week this last week was one that was titled, Young Students Gravitate to Math, How Teachers Can Build on That Curiosity. And as I was reading that, I found it really interesting from Ed Week that in a study they did, they found that 92% of educators that they surveyed say that students are more motivated to learn math and science if teachers employ a problem-solving approach, according to a survey they did, despite the fact that it's highly popular among educators. Many have not been trained on how to use it. And so part of their study went in to say about how so many teachers are interested in this idea of this problem solving approach, because we've all seen it, how differently students engage and are motivated to be there in the environment. But then it goes on to say that only 1 in 5 of those teachers said that they felt their district actually invested in the professional learning for them to deploy the thing they feel will work. And so it really got me thinking about, we often hear about, this has been going on for 20 years. We've been trying this inquiry-based approach for 2 decades. And look where we're at. The results are what they are. And this is a horrible thing. But in reality, it's not necessarily the idea is a bad idea, or the research isn't there to support the idea. One of the greatest challenges is the implementation of the ideas. And when you only have 1 in 5 teachers saying that they feel like they've been trained to do this, can we actually say we've been doing this for the last 20 years?
Right.
Just because researchers have been talking about it, right? We hear people go out there and say, the turnarounds that they're seeing and how kids are engaged, but, if it's not getting to the teacher level of them seeing it in action and then actually being able to deploy those strategies, is that really an implementation of those ideas?
Right. The only thing I'm gonna push back on your 20 years thing, because I was reading a book by a guy named Warren Colburn. You don't know who Warren Colburn is because he wrote this stinking book in 1823. All right. And so it's funny. I was just talking about it. So I pulled it up while you were chit-chatting. Check out this sentence that this little paragraph. He says, students should be allowed to pursue their own method first, and then they should be made to observe and explain it. And if it was not the best, some improvement should be suggested by the teacher. That's inquiry. 18-23.
Yeah. Productive struggle.
200 years we have known how students want to learn. Students want to learn through this inquiry, this discovery, this, and it doesn't mean we're just freaking throwing the kids into the deep end of the pool. That's a lie. That's an exaggeration. But we are allowing moments of the kids being allowed to swim wherever they want. They don't have to swim in the little lane. They can swim wherever they want for at least a brief moment.
Yeah, that reminds me, I got into a conversation with somebody on Twitter. I forget who it was at this point, but it was talking about like this idea of inquiry based, and they were really just asking like, what is it? And I said, well, the role of the teacher changes, like with your swimming analogy. You change from lifeguard, which is kind of the direct instruction approach, and I'm going to jump in and save you at every moment that you might look like you're drowning, to you're shifting yourself to more of a swim coach. And you're there helping, like they can choose their lane, but you're kind of helping, like reminding them to kick when they need to kick. And you're helping them, teach them, as opposed to throwing them the buoy and pulling them to shore, at the moment of distress.
Yep.
Throwing them a kickboard, throwing them a kickboard, or it's that productive struggle. And I think that's really where teachers themselves struggle of figuring out is what is productive for the students and what isn't. And there's that fine line that and I'll be honest with you, back of my head, because I'm the guy who's 3 weeks behind on the pacing calendar right now, going, oh, man, what happened? But it's because I did talk too long and make those connections for those kids and let them struggle a little longer than maybe I had time for, but they gained from in the end. So I don't know. I love that the 1 in 5 teachers not having the trainings on that. So guys, what you got coming up?
So interestingly enough, Dr. Boaler and I just released an Ed Source article to teach math effectively. California must focus on deep conceptual understanding. So that got released on Ed Source May 20th. And it focused and talked about some of the ideas that we've been discussing in the California math framework, and kind of went on a little bit more talking about how, approaching through big ideas and conceptual understanding and teaching to this. And then we zoned in and focused on a site actually that my team, Mary Lou on my team, has been supporting for the last 2 years since COVID. And it's a very small school. It's about 250 kids. They've got 20 kids, 25 kids per grade level. So it's a, small school, very rural area. but the teachers that have bought in to the ideas that Mary Lou's going out there and modeling and coaching have seen tremendous growth in just those 2 years. So we're seeing that a lot of schools are coming out of COVID are on the decline and not rebounding back to where they were pre-COVID. This school has tripled their pre-COVID achievement rates. So they were
Wow.
pre-COVID. Now it's not astronomical and astonishing, but they're at 16% now, right? And that's after 2 years, and still waiting for this year's test scores to see where they're at this point after another year of work with Mary Lou. But what's exciting is there were only 7%, I think it was, in fourth grade. The year before COVID, they were up to 36% in fourth grade, at the state of average in fourth grade, just after 2 years of this kind of support, right? And so just think once the system catches up where their kindergartners are actually learning, in which all the way through how those kids are going to continue to progress. So there's definitely progress that's happening, and we're seeing that at the local level, and it's exciting to see when they're. But it starts at the superintendent level. That superintendent is bought in and believes, because she has seen the difference in motivation and engagement when we're teaching through this manner, and test scores will come, right? It's like we're going to not worry about it, knowing that they will come if we just believe in the process. Yep.
And it's so what you're saying is it's okay. We know kids want it. The article is saying 92% of the kids. We know kids learn better this way. The teachers aren't prepared, and they're saying they know they're not prepared for it. But we notice that it's worth this battle because you have this existence proof that says when we try and address this, good stuff happens. We're seeing the same thing in Merced County when we are helping schools shift from a teacher-centered, largely lecture-based instruction strategy to a strategy where the students are more involved, they're more thinking. There's always an element of inquiry that comes prior to the formal kind of teacher instruction kind of a thing. And that prior might be just minutes. The students do some sort of inquiry in minutes prior to the teacher teaching something, or days prior to the teacher, but it's got to come first.
Right.
And that inquiry is sometimes it's just 10 minutes of inquiry. Sometimes it's 45 minutes of inquiry. It's like, but that inquiry has to happen first before the teacher jumps in. And we've known this since 1823 when Warren Colburn was talking about it. So we're going to,
and then NCTM though, I wrote the books on. I can picture them. I can see the colors of them. Duane, I know you've worked with those extensively. I've seen you do trainings on those books. What am I talking about? It's like K8, K6, K5, 6, 8, 9, 12. They're colored.
Is that the taking action?
Thank you. Sorry, it's been a long day. But yeah, I've seen you implement pieces of taking action to promote that. So even though I think Cole's paper is probably a great place to start to kind of get some understanding. And then if you want a deeper dive, would you say the taking action books would be the next place to step with that? If you want to do some reading and such?
Well, I think, right now it's the 10-year anniversary of Principles to Actions. Oh wait, Principles. Principles to Actions. Yeah, that blue book, and it's the 10-year anniversary. So they've got a new version coming out. I think it's just an updated forward or something. But in that, they talk about the 8 effective teaching practices, and when you take those and you organize those 8 effective teaching practices into an inquiry-centered, student-centered instruction, that's the taking action books. So I would say for teachers who are curious, start with the Principles to Actions book because it's small, and then advance to one of the taking action books that kind of fits their grade band. Of course, Building Thinking Classrooms is kind of compatible with that. 5 Practices is compatible with that. Right now, I'm doing a bunch of reading and research on Teaching Through Problem Solving, which is the name that the Japanese teachers kind of refer to the way they teach in Japan. They're all kind of the same flavor of students doing some inquiry as a necessary part of their learning. You know,
I have a colleague I need to get you in touch with, though. Then, if you want that problem solving, he developed he was a calculus teacher who got asked to teach Algebra 1, Integrated 1 back when the shift came in. And he rewrote a curriculum, and it's all problem solving. There's no just rote. It's all contextual learning. It's all word problems. Every day, nothing was done just as here's work a problem. It was, here's a word problem. It's an application all the time. So I'd love to get you hooked up with him.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds,
if you ever want to have that conversation.
It sounds
pretty cool.
Compatible with like college preparatory math. CPM is a lot of word problems. MVP is similar.
Yep.
A lot of word problems kind of a thing. And that's, we know kids learn that way and they benefit. Yeah. I think what we're going to do is we're going to mine this topic for the next few episodes, interrupted every once in a while by our webinars, Jo Boaler being the next one. Do you guys agree with that? Can we mine this and kind of pull on this thread for a while?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
I think this is a rocky topic, and I think we could talk about this inquiry in a way that will kind of really poke the bear of some people who think differently. I'm trying to be nice right now as we're wrapping up this episode, but I think it's worth us kind of poking and saying we're right, and this is why we think we're right. You guys are okay with that?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
good. I think anything for the good of the order, Cole?
No, I'm good. I'm excited to continue that conversation. I think that it can really help, especially as we go into summer and people are rethinking their plans for next year. Great time to be having this conversation so you can start something fresh. And so this would be a great time for listeners to be tuning into that conversation.
Yeah. Anything for the good of the order, Cole? Scott?
I was going to tab off of what Cole said there. I think summer's that great opportunity, but it's not one of those things you don't have to go jump off the 10-meter high dive for this.
Right.
We're not expecting a 3.0 level of difficulty. Go at your level, try a lesson, try something new, plan 5 or 6, and then build out from there.
Yeah.
That's that. Find something that speaks to you this summer. That's always been fun.
Indeed. This is going to be a fun episode for me to edit because there's going to be like 47,000 references I need to put in our episode description thing. I mean, we got to go in here.
Cool. Mischief managed then. That was my whole point. Come in and see how many things I can get Duane to have to add in.
Yeah, I know. It's going to take me a week just to get all those stinking links in the description.
Well, if you weren't such a control freak and passed it off, we could help you out.
I think Scott's punishment for being late should be he has to go find all the links and email them to you.
Oh, now you're talking. All right, Scott, start emailing them to me. All right.
Hey, man, I'm just staring at kids taking finals right now, so piece of cake. Make sure they're not cheating.
Good. Hey, guys, if I don't see you soon, have a great summer.
You too.
You too.
All right, see you guys.
Yeah. All right, take care.